Well, welcome to week 11 of intentional relationships. And this week we're talking about intentional dating. And I know some of you, this is the whole point. You've been here this whole time. You've been so patient, and we are here. We're going to be talking about dating this week. And dating used to kind of be built in, super easy. We would just, in high school, you just ask somebody out, they go out with you, you get married, you live happily ever after. Of course, no, that's not what happened. But we were in a culture where people were comfortable doing that, and it has changed so much. It's so much harder to date now, to find people. There's so much going on online, and that has its own set of problems. So dating is not as easy as it used to be. So we're going to be talking a little bit about intentional dating this week, which is the step after hopefully you've done an intentional friendship. So, when it comes to dating, why do you think people aren't dating as much anymore? What's going on with the dating world?
Well, my understanding, and you being a guy, maybe you'd probably agree to this, but I still think rejection is still a big deal. And, I really love the guy to pursue. I still want him to ask me out. And so if a guy still is that pressure, then there's that idea of that rejection. And it's really difficult. Yeah. So we're seeing a culture, especially among young singles, where they just hang out. Yeah. There's no actual intentional dating. There's no actual courtship. And they're just hanging out, spending time together, because I think it allows the guy to get a sense of whether, this is somebody that's really interested in me. So those definitions are strange. And of course, one of my pet peeves is, why are we asking children if they're dating anybody? Yeah. Why are we asking little kids that question? Why are we asking teenagers? Because unless you're ready to date to marry, I don't think you should be dating at all. That's my opinion. Yeah. I think you should just be friends until you get to an age of 18 and older, that you're ready for that serious relationship. But that's right. I think some of it also is maturity. I think we're still seeing people delayed maturity. When I turned 18, I know you two, I couldn't wait to get out of my house. Yeah. I mean, I had to come back a couple times.
I got married at 19.
You got married at 19?
Yes.
Wow. So we were gone. Yeah. And then nowadays you get people 30 years of age still living at home. So how is that person who's living at home going to be responsible to pursue a woman or to be pursued when you haven't really grown up? So, that's then, of course, online dating is, I just really dislike the word dating, because I believe it should just be online friendship until you get to know somebody. So dating is what does it mean? If I said, hey, we're going on a lunch date, is that dating? Yeah. Or can we just say, hey, we're going out to lunch together? What does that mean? So it's defining. It's hard.
Well, I think if you've taken the time to have an intentional friendship, then you're going to find that when you're dating, it's a little more intentional. I remember after Teresa and I had spent some time getting to know each other, I literally said this to her: I would like to date you. Would you be interested in doing that? I made it very clear, and she said that was so refreshing, because so many times in the past, people would just, hey, you want to go out? And she never knew, are we getting to know each other? What's going on here? But we had our relationship come to the point where I did know that I was interested in her, and I could tell there was something in return. So we just made it clear we're going to be dating, and really got to know each other in the context of dating. And it's funny, you mentioned before that there is no dating in the Bible.
Right.
The Bible doesn't give us a rule book on how to date, but it gives us principles. We see couples in the Bible and how they came together, but there's also principles about how we build relationships. It tells us in Galatians, the greatest thing is to love our neighbor as ourselves, to love one another. That's a very practical way we can get to know somebody in the context of dating, is just to love them well, to serve them well, to protect their honor, just like we would any of our friends. So there's principles in the Bible that can help us understand how to date well. Yep. What about love at first sight?
Oh, yeah. I've had a few love at first sight, lust at first sight. People say this to me, it's in the Bible, different places, right? Mm-hmm. There are people, they met each other, arranged marriages. Yeah. This is the thing with me. I think that if that person is the one, and you really believe they're the one, they'll still be the one in a year. Yeah. Right? If did God really tell you after meeting somebody for 2 seconds that they're going to be your spouse? We hear this in movies and, different TV channels that, that people like to watch, a lot of the romance movies and things like that. Is that person that God said that's going to be your spouse? They'll still be, if God said it, in a year.
That's right.
Because we tell people it's important to go through all 4 seasons, even if some of those seasons are the intentional friendship.
Yeah.
And then maybe 9 months, like 3 months of intentional friendship, and then 9 months of dating.
Yeah.
Because why is it important to go through 4 seasons, Dan?
Yeah. You do need to take time to get to know people. I remember one time a guy at the church I was at was just bragging about how he saw his wife, and 2 weeks later he proposed, and he wanted to tell his story to our singles, and I said, you're not getting anywhere near our singles. They don't need to hear that fantasy story, and I know that happens sometimes. For sure it happens. But the reality is, the less time you have spent getting to know somebody and building a relationship, the higher risk you have of a relationship going south. Again, not impossible, but we want you to have the best possible chance to have a successful relationship, and there's no reason why you can't wait a while to really get to know somebody. You may save yourself from a lifetime of heartache. A friend in ministry used to say, better to be single than wish you were, right? We don't want to make a mistake by getting into something too fast.
Yeah.
And in the Bible, it talks about how God made us for each other, but there's actually physiological things that happen when you begin to bond and connect with somebody. And one of the things that happens is your brain starts pumping out endorphins. You ever notice when you first meet somebody and you're dating them, you get all excited and you wait to see if they text you. Every text comes in, you hope it's them. And if they text you, you get all giddy and you're going to, oh yeah, it's got to be the perfect response text back. And you think about them late at night. Are they going to call me? And that goes on in your mind. What's going on is God's created you to bond, and you're bonding with them in these ways, and that's fine. It's a wonderful thing. However, it also tends to cloud your judgment. Yeah. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to think of all the wonderful things that connect you and make you the same, and that you guys have in common. You know what? He likes to breathe too. I love to breathe. We make things so basic and so simple sometimes, when the reality is, listen, you're bonding to them, yes, but you're a little clouded with judgment. So you want to spend some time really getting to know them. So when that kind of cloud disappears, it takes about 6 months.
Yeah.
But then you really understand who they are, and they understand. And that's really when you start having some conflict too, which we talk about in chapter 8. And you get to work through that and see, oh, we can do this as a couple. We can be a successful couple.
Well, and I continue to see, because I do full-time singles ministry as well, people still getting ahead of God. They date like the world's way, because if you don't have the intentional friendship, if you don't have a church where you're serving together, like they're in a church in a different part of the city or whatever, when you don't have that extra time to get to know them and find out their character, find out how they pay their bills, find out their situation with their kids, find out, all of these personal, if you don't have that, you get ahead of God and you become in a relationship, a dating relationship, which is what the world does. And then you're like, oh, well, now I want to be their friend. And it's going backwards. Yeah. And so often you'll compromise. You'll ignore the blind spots. You'll ignore the red flags. And people have said something to you, but you're already emotionally tied. Then you go, well, it's okay that they've earned axe murder. Not everybody's perfect, right? Not that far. But in my own life, I've compromised. I was in a relationship one time where I said, it's okay that he doesn't have a great job, because then, he can be great for him to tour with me once we're married, It's okay that he, doesn't have any money in the bank, I'm poor too, so we'll both be poor together, And then I realized later, wait a minute, he needs to have a good job because it needs to be something he loves, and it will be difficult for him to leave or to give up. He needs to have some money in the bank and savings, And so I remember just my emotions got involved and I compromised. But once my emotions got out of it and I looked at it, I went, thank you, God, that I did not get married, because it would have ended in divorce. Aren't you thankful for the people you didn't marry?
I am thankful. Yes, I have many of them. Also, I was thinking about my first versus second marriage. And I went into my first marriage wanting to feel fulfilled, wanting to be happy. And I thought the relationship would provide that. I thought marriage would make me happy. And it didn't. Not that I wasn't a happy person. I am by nature a happy person. So I was able to have maybe a good mindset about life, but my marriage wasn't happy. It didn't make me happy. And it was interesting when Teresa and I started dating, I'd gone through some healing, and I realized at this point in my life, I don't want to do anything that God doesn't want me to do. And God's given me a calling and certain things in my life He wants me to do. And I knew that if I was to have a relationship, that would have to be right. It would have to fit in with what God has called me to do. And Teresa felt the same way, and it just so happened that he brought us together. So one of the things we want to be sure we're doing when we get into relationships and we're dating, it isn't all about us. It's really about getting to know the other person and really getting to know ourselves and understanding ourselves and how we are with this other person. Because when we're going towards marriage, and marriage really does change you. You begin to share everything. So when you're dating, you're getting a chance to understand how that works together and how you work together as a couple.
And this also is a long chapter. And so we want you, if you need to break this into 2 weeks, then break it into 2 weeks because it's important. Don't rush. Don't get ahead of the information. Even if you're like, I'm not dating anybody and I don't even know the last time I had a date. Here's the thing. Whether you want to date, whether you think you'll ever date, whether you think you'll ever get married again, you'll know somebody who is. So even if this chapter is not for you specifically right now at your season, it's for someone. So learn the information. I remember my pastor, when I was a young single, I said around, it was in May and in June, he would always he would always do a whole series on marriage. And he would do it to tie in Mother's Day and Father's Day. And I would get so frustrated because I said, listen, the singles are not coming, Pastor, because you always talk about marriage in these 2 months and you're reminding them of what they don't have. And then he said to me, Kris, do you ever want to be married? And I went, well, yeah. He goes, then why aren't you coming to the sermons? Yeah. I'm teaching about the value and the importance of marriage, not to make you feel bad. And I didn't get that. So here's the thing. If you want to be, or whether you or you know someone, your grandchild or child, this is great information. And so take your time to go through and also look at the different people of the Bible and their relationships.
That's right. I would just say this. If your perspective is, I'm not interested in dating, and so you want to not do this chapter, that's fine. But understand that when you learn things that you can help other people with, helping other people makes you a good friend. Helping other people makes you helpful in their life. And for all your relationships, you want to be a person that can bring value and that can help. So I would encourage you, go through it, even if you're not dating right now or don't intend to date. It will be good for you to learn this. Yep. And one of the things that we talk a little bit about this, and this is a sad part of dating, is sometimes dating ends in a breakup.
Yep.
And that's expected. I've had many times that happened to me, and I think most people have had more breakups than they've had successful dating relationships. So what do you do when you break up? Well, usually there's a dynamic that happens. So there's the breaker and the breakee. There's someone that decides that this relationship this should end, sometimes both, but often it's one. And so what'll happen naturally is the person that's doing the breaking, they feel kind of guilty. It feels bad to have to make that decision. The person that's getting broken up with feels kind of rejected. It feels bad to feel that way. And so what can happen is sometimes the person that feels kind of guilty will maybe keep texting and trying to encourage, and they don't want them to feel bad, so they keep dragging the relationship along. And all that does is prolong the heartache. Right. So we highly recommend, if you have broken up with somebody, make it clean, make it complete. Give yourself 3-6 months of really maybe no contact, no doing the things. If you're in the same circles, it might be a little awkward. You may have to figure out some boundaries there, but give yourself plenty of time to heal. They did a study with people where they studied their brain, and when you got broken up with, when they would show a picture of the person that broke up with you, the brain would act a lot like an addict's brain when they see the drug that they want. So there's something that goes on inside of us that has connected us to somebody else. So it's helpful for you, for your healing, to be able to give yourself plenty of time to get over that relationship and to really have some perspective on it too as you go forward and make future relationships.
Yeah. So the key, though, is to really practice those boundaries and to say, right now I need perspective. I need to be able to look at this and see if, where my part, their part. Because you also want to learn from them, right, Dan? Yeah. We want to learn from even our dating relationships. Because here's the thing. Just because you're dating doesn't mean you have to get married. Yeah. Right? And so, if you find out, wow, I've gotten to know them even better, I've asked them even more of the questions in the back of the book, and now I realize I don't really see myself marrying this person, but they are a good person, and it may be a better person for someone else. Yeah. And so separate yourself, disconnect for a while until you get the proper perspective. And then later on, if you can go back without being tempted to fall back into the relationship, then you do it. And you'll know as you pray and ask other people to pray too.
That's right. And you know what's right for you too. So make sure you're doing that, thinking it, being intentional about it, and doing the right thing for you in your relationships. We hope you enjoy your discussion this week, talking about dating, and make sure you are encouraging with each other. Sometimes people struggle in this area, so have a lot of grace for each other. And we look forward to seeing you next week for our final week, week 12.